Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Taha, and I work as an information security specialist with DEWA. And today I'll be your moderator for the panel discussion, which essentially focuses on the layered security approach. Just a quick reminder before we start, we have got great expertise here, but everyone is speaking in their personal capacity and not necessarily on behalf of the companies. Mr. Riyad and Mr. Rami, pleased to have you in the panel. Before we begin, we all understand that data is the most valuable asset for any business, and in today's age, it's rightly said that data is the new oil. Mr. Rami, maybe we could, you could start with telling us what are some of the major data security challenges that organizations face.
Well, thank you, Taha, for the introduction. Thank you all for your attending. Well, actually speaking, before we're talking about the challenges that are being faced by different organizations, I would like to shed a light for the difference between data privacy and data security. Well, actually speaking, because this is so much important for all organizations to distinguish between the difference between these two different terminologies. Well, actually speaking, for the data privacy, it's all about the distinct of data that can be shared with third party, which is classified as non-confidential data, and the data that should be private and cannot be exposed and shared with third party. There are two main aspects that should be taken into consideration to enforce the data privacy. First of all, we need to ensure the access control. Access control, we need to ensure that the only authenticated users or only authenticated employees have the right authorization to access certain part of data. For the data protection, we need to ensure that even if unauthorized people are accessing the data, they still unable to view the data or to make any harm to that data. That can be achieved in two main methods, by encryption or by enforcing the data loss prevention mechanisms. The main difference between data privacy and data security is that data privacy is focusing more on making and keeping the data confidential, while the data security is to protect data from any malicious attack. Now, going back to the challenges that being faced by organizations, actually speaking, it depends on the organization itself. But actually speaking, there are top 6 main factors that are being faced by so many organizations. The main factor is the accidental exposure. Most of the attendees knows that a huge number or a huge percentage of data breach is done by human errors or accidentally. That can be achieved by enforcing the data loss prevention as an example. The other factor, the other main challenge that are being faced by the organization is the phishing and social engineering, because it's the main vector being used by the attackers. Third is the insider threats. These are employees who are inside the organization who can be classified in 3 categories. First category, we name them as non-malicious insider, whereby these users don't aware or don't follow the security policies inside the organization and accidentally expose some of the data outside the organization. The other type of insider threats is the malicious insider, whereby these users are intentionally, for a personal gain, trying to expose the data to outsiders or to use it for their own personal gain. The third type of these users or these insiders threat is the compromised users who don't know that their credentials are compromised by an attacker, who use their credentials to become as a legitimate access to the data and start exposing the data outside the network. The fourth challenge that most of the organizations are facing is the ransomware. The fourth one is no proper cloud adoption strategy in place. It's not talking that it's not about saying that a cloud is not secure. No, it's much more secure than on-prem. But usually, if you don't have a proper strategy for the cloud adoption, you might miss some security measures that has to be taken into consideration when moving your workload and deploy it over cloud. The sixth challenge that I see that it is very important for the organization to focus on is the source code review and the practices being used for the source code review. Because if you don't have a solid source code review, you will face a lot of, let's say, SQL injection attacks. In my views, these are the 6 main challenges that are being faced by the organization.
Thank you, Rami, for highlighting these challenges. I definitely appreciate that you drove a comparison between the data privacy and the data security. And of course, one of the components that you discussed is the insider threat. I strongly believe that humans are linked in the security chain. So definitely, organizations must ensure that they have adequate security in place to that. Despite increased data protection regulation, data breaches are growing. In fact, according to Capital, 80% of the data breaches involve PII information at a cost of $150 per record. So definitely, we understand that these challenges are critical for any organization. Now let's turn to Mr. Riyad and understand what are some of the countermeasures that organizations must take to protect data. Essentially, from the perspective of people, process, and technology frame.
Thank you, Taha. Actually, the journey starts with a good data lifecycle management, which is a very important topic because business relies on consistent, accurate, and high-quality data to make proper decisions and to exploit new opportunities. And in the early sessions, we talked about the importance of data science, data governance to drive innovation. Actually, one of the big challenges is that business create a massive amount of data. And to have a mature data lifecycle management, we need to embed security in all phases of the process. Data lifecycle management is basically a process consists of several phases, as you know, starting with the data creation and all the way till the data destruction. And we need to embed security in all of these phases. For example, in the data creation, we need to authenticate the source. We need to make sure, verify integrity of data before accepting it. It is very important also to classify data at the very beginning. So we label the data according to its sensitivity and criticality to business, so we can later on apply the correct security measures that equivalent to the level of that data or the importance of that data. Also in the storage, we need to secure data in storage using cryptographic techniques, encryption. Also, we need to apply access control mechanisms to make sure that unauthorized people can reach data. Also, we need to secure data while in use and while being processed in memory. We need to exchange data securely with others inside and outside the organization so that we protect data from threats like man in the middle and sniffing. Finally, we need to destruct data securely. And we need to have a data retention policy. This is very important because data should be removed securely and should not be kept indefinitely in the organization. So when we talk about implementing security, technology alone is not enough. So we need to adopt security, as we know, consists of many pillars: process, technology, and people. Talking about the people, very important and key element in the security, because people use data, they control data, and they should be aware about their responsibilities in applying security through the entire life cycle. When we talk about the processes, also security is data, also life cycle management consumes security services and security processes. We need to back up data, we need to archive data, we need to classify data, we need to do change management, apply change management principles, we need to audit and do security reviews. When there is an incident, we need to activate the incident response plan and procedures so we can react quickly. Also, finally, the technology is also very important, as we know, because it will automate all the security operations and make or activate the security activities more efficiently. Apparently, using all the pillars of security is very important. And one good example is data leakage prevention. Many people of us think about data leakage prevention as a solution or technology. Actually, it is bigger than that. It is a strategy. It is practices. It is a program we need to implement inside the organization. First, we develop the business case. Then we create the data leakage strategy. Then we implement, or we develop a detailed plan to implement the data leakage capabilities. Then we need to classify data. We need to put the classification levels and the classification rules. Maybe we need to sit with the department so we can discuss with them in our workshops, discover data, understand business processes, understand where data resides and what type of data they are using. And in these workshops, we can focus on the training and awareness and tell them why security is important in the whole process. After that, maybe we need also to implement the technology, data leakage prevention technology, so we can enforce the security controls in very efficient and effective manner. So it is a journey. It is not only a technology or one pillar. It is a combination of all these pillars together. And as also we discussed this morning, the data lifecycle management extends to a bigger term called a data governance. So we can start with developing a data security strategy that is based on the good practices like COBIT. NIST also, they have their guidelines to destruct data and sanitize data securely.
Wonderful. I think there is some noise. Mohammed? Yeah. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we
You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear. We can hear you, Taha.
Mohammed?
Go ahead, Taha.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Taha.
Okay. I think there's somebody talking here. I couldn't hear you properly, especially the last part. Okay. Hello? All right. So, okay, now in continuation to the discussion, that was a wonderful and well organized into the countermeasures. The goal is simple: to make it much harder for an attacker to get to the perimeter and into the network. Even if a hacker manages to breach one layer of security, they still have a lot more layers which are in place. Now, Mr. Riyad, what do you think organizations should adapt, and how should they implement a layered security approach to improve their cybersecurity posture?
Yeah. I think, layered we all heard about the layered security. It is a strategy more than just a concept. So in the current situation, we are living the attack vectors. There are more attack vectors. the attack surface becomes bigger and the threat landscape even more complex. And this requires us to think about security in a layered situation where there are different layers of controls at the network layer, the application layer, at the endpoint layer, at the database layer, so we can ensure that assets, the main assets, our data is the major assets, is protected from different types of attacks, including those sophisticated attacks. So it is more a strategy than just a term, and it is very important to build your security architecture by utilizing the layered security concept.
Excellent. Excellent. Mr. Rami, would you like to add anything else to what Mr. Riyad said?
Well, actually speaking, I need to re-emphasize on the importance of the data security. And actually speaking, there is no single technique that can be adapted by any organization to ensure that the data is secure. As mentioned by my colleague Riyad, it's a journey, it's a layered, it's a defense in depth, whereby some complex techniques should be adapted in order to ensure that, that you achieve the data security and to improve your security posture. I can mention some of them. For the data discovery and the classification, it is so much important for any organization to do that exercise, because this will be a cornerstone once you implement your data loss prevention solution. Because you need to identify the data, classify them, and to proceed with the DLP implementation. You need to do the data masking, because these will be, let's say, in line with some of the regulatory requirements or best practices that it is being used widely in the globe. You need to go with the data encryption. You need to implement some major tools inside your architecture, like the identity access management, privilege access management, anti-malware, antivirus. After that, you need to ensure that you are conducting a frequent audit review by third party on the practices that you are currently conducting. You can go with the approach of the GRC, which is the governance, risk, and compliance, by which in the governance piece you will enforce certain tools, policies throughout all the organization to protect the data. For the risk part, you need to conduct a frequent risk assessment on the cybersecurity threats across the globe, and you need to ensure that you are ready for any threats, because you don't need to be only proactive. You need to ensure that you are ready whenever you have an attack, that you have a proper incident response plan. You can, as mentioned by our colleagues yesterday, the zero trust. The zero trust is one of the major parts that any organization should adopt, because you're going to ensure the micro-segmentation and your critical assets are totally segmented and secured from any other assets. The last part that I think that any organization should adopt is the authentication and the authorization. Authentication by enforcing multi-factor authentication when accessing any critical application or any critical data. Authorization, I believe that this is a major part as well, because you need to ensure that you have an authorization framework by which you identify for each user what is the level of data that they should access to fulfill their, let's say, their need and nothing more. And you cannot keep it like this, because a periodic review is hereby required. On a quarterly basis, you need to ensure that the authorization is still required. You need to do an assessment. Is it still required? The end user still need the access? Is he still part of the organization? In my views, these are the major parts that we need to focus on. Thank you, Taha.
Thank you so much. I think that brings us up on time. I really appreciate hearing from both of you. I'm sure the emphasis we put on data security challenges and the layered security approach to address it is valuable to many people attending this conference today. I would like to thank you once again and the organizers for gathering us all in the conference.
Thank you, Taha.
Thank you. Have a good day.